Thank you for watching me on YouTube. As always, I present myself as an honest, unapologetic voice out there for those who are willing to listen. I usually talk about issues facing my community, the government, and of course the corrupt mainstream media.
Jesse, so Ray, your partner here, colleague,
comrade,
she got, seen the protests in Greece and Europe elsewhere. Did you guys take your cue from that? Are you hoping to incite, certainly what was a lot of attention, if not police activity? I know over the weekend there was over 100 arrests, and you guys got things fired up. Are you taking your cues from the international movement? And how do you want to see this in? If you could have it in a perfect way, how would it be?
Well, I don't know. It's really difficult to kind of answer questions leading to those conclusions. I'd say that we didn't take our cue off of anybody, really. It became a more spontaneous movement. As far as seeing this end, I wouldn't like to see it end. I think I'd like to see the conversation continue. This is what we should have been talking about after 2008 when the economy collapsed. We basically patched a hole on the tire and said, yeah, let the car keep rolling. Unfortunately, it's fun to talk to the propaganda machine in the media, especially conservative leading networks such as yourself, because we find that we can't get conversations on the Department of Justice's ongoing investigation of News Corporation, for which you are an employee, but we can certainly ask questions like, why are the poor engaging in class warfare? Now, after 30 years of having our living standards decrease while the wealthiest 1% have had it better than ever, I think it's time for maybe, some participation in our democracy that isn't funded by news cameras and gentlemen such as yourself.
Okay, but let me give you this challenge, Jesse.
Sure.
We're here giving you an opportunity on the record with credit and ancestry to put any message you want out there, give you fair coverage, and I'm not going to in any way be biased about it. So there is an exception to the case because you wouldn't be able to get your message out without us, yes?
No, certainly. I mean, take for instance when Glenn Beck was doing his protest and he called the president a person who hates white people and white culture. That was a low moment in America's history, and you guys kind of had a big part in it. So I'm glad to see you coming around and kind of paying attention what the other 99% of Americans are paying attention to, as opposed to the far-right fringe who would love to just destroy the middle class entirely.
All right, fair enough. You have a voice and an important reason to criticize myself, my company, and anyone else. But let me ask you that. In fairness, does this administration or President Obama have any criticism as to the financial situation in the country's in?
I think myself, as well as many other people, would like to see a little bit more economic justice or social justice, Jesus stuff, as far as feeding the poor, health care for the sick. I find it really entertaining that people like to hold the Bill of Rights up while they're screaming at gay soldiers, but they just can't wrap their heads around the idea that a for-profit healthcare system doesn't work. So let's just look at it like this. If we want the president to do more, let's talk to him on a level that actually reaches people, instead of asking for his birth certificate and wasting time with total nonsense like cilantro.
in the latest made-up controversy created by the Republican Party and its allies in the conservative media. Operation Fast and Furious. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms allowed firearms to go into the Mexican drug cartel's hands. And I guess some of the drug runners ended up killing a U.S. border agent. What happened was ATF agents were going undercover to purchase firearms. It ended up in the Mexican drug cartels. The United States got most of the firearms back, but the scandal has been a black eye on the Justice Department. Republican Congressman Darrell Issa of California, as well as many other Republicans and those in the conservative media, are calling for Attorney General Eric Holder to step down. Once again, I want to explain this to those who are watching me on YouTube. I'm giving you my honest, unapologetic opinion about this issue. As a believer of the Second Amendment, the right to bear firearms, I am a strong supporter of firearm rights for all Americans who are willing to operate a firearm. This distraction, as well as Solyndra, Acorn, the president's birth certificate, the issue with NPR, the issue with radical Muslim hearings, the Ground Zero Mosque, issues that the Republicans have been aggressively campaigning on, are not what they promised to deliver to the American people. The Republican Party ran on the platform of trying to bring jobs to Americans. Speaker of the House John Boehner, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, and the Republican Party itself has been wrapping their asses around the American flag in an event of another culture war, where gay marriage, abortions, welfare, collective bargaining, and protesters against the Wall Street bailouts are enemies. And they're getting their guns, they're getting their hats, and they're getting their picket signs to counter-protest what they deem is the evil of the liberal. President Barack Obama had put out a jobs plan which would assure 2 million jobs. Right now, due to the fact that the Republicans and Democrats got Congress at gridlock, Congress's job approval is at 15%. When they were elected, the Republicans were promising to bring jobs back to America, jobs for all Americans. Unfortunately, we're wrapped in this culture war over trivial issues, from birth certificates to Acorn, from issues about Sharia law to gay marriage in other states. My thing here is that as an American, I tend not to worry about those issues. I worry about the economy itself. And the Republicans are stalling the economy until the election so they can nominate a person who's willing to take on an incumbent but vulnerable President Barack Obama. Americans, I want you to understand why I can't support the Republican Party nor the candidates. As an American voter who's an independent, I tend to have socially liberal stances on most issues. I am a fiscal conservative because I have a budget. I got to keep the lights on. I got to keep the food in the refrigerator. I got to keep gas in my vehicle. I got to work for a living in order to make things happen. Unfortunately, there are less fortunate people who are struggling. The unemployed, the lower class, and those who are struggling in the middle class. These are the people who need the help more than I. Conservatives tend to not look at low income, minorities, the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender community, and of course, people like me. They don't look at us as successful. They look at us like we're determined to get handouts, entitlements, and milking off the government. I, for one, am not that type of person. I work for a living. But for every time I hear a conservative complain about how the lesser are getting better than they are, it kind of makes me scratch my head. The comments on YouTube, as well as the Republican Party itself, are the distractions that we don't need. For those who support President Barack Obama, I want you to understand this. If the president can run on what the do-nothing Congress is doing, maybe he may win re-election. Because believe it or not, if Congress is at 15% job approval, then it's likely that the Republicans and Democrats are vulnerable in their respective districts or in their state or Senate positions. President Obama has still maintained a strong grip on what's going on. More Americans trust him with the economy than the Republican Party itself. The Republicans are wrapping themselves around the American flag in defense of another culture war. And I want you to understand that for those who support President Obama, you need to get in touch with your congressman, your senator, your governor, or your state and local representatives and let them know that if you vote against jobs, you vote against education, you vote against infrastructure, and you vote against the common sense principles that makes America great, then you're not standing with me.